First up, he's a professor of sociology at Georgetown University, whose latest book is Tears We Cannot Stop, a sermon to white America. Michael Eric Dyson. What are you? Uh-oh, I can see. All right. Now, Michael, you've sat in this chair before when you were the newsmaker. Unfortunately, this week I find I'm the newsmaker. Yeah. I wanted you to come by here because, you know, I want you to school me. I did a bad thing.
Yeah, well, that's a great place to begin, Bill. A very bad thing.
Yeah.
But look, in the past, you've been the person who has been on the front line saying that the left shouldn't apologize. Progressives should resist any sense of complicity with a culture that is too apologetic. And yet you find yourself on the hot seat here tonight. What led to that change of mind?
Oh, and I thought you were going to be easy on me. And you shouldn't. No, I mean, that's true. But, you know, honestly, I've said both. I mean, I remember when Mitt Romney was running, he had a book, No Apologies. You know, like America should never apologize. And I said, no, apologies are sometimes appropriate. There is a lot of bullshit apologizing in America, and I am against that. But, you know, we shouldn't apologize for slavery and Japanese internment and Abu Ghraib and Indian genocide and Tuskegee and a million. So when it's appropriate, this was appropriate. Because I'll tell you why. Because for black folks, that word, I don't care who you are, has caused pain. I'm not here to do that. Now, the guy who was here, it's not his fault. I feel bad about him, the senator. It's all on me. But he said a weird thing. The comic mind goes to a weird place sometimes. But it doesn't matter that it wasn't said in malice. It wasn't. If it brought back pain to people.
Well,
then and that's why I apologize freely, and I reiterate it tonight. That's sincere.
But look. But you're used to those cheers.
Not that big of an asshole.
All right. Well, you're used to those cheers, but you got to understand. Now, you know I've taken a lot of heat, people saying you're a coon, you're a sellout. Why would you dare go on the show with your guy who's your friend? Because they figure that I'm going to be complicit with you, that I'm not going to challenge you, that this is an easy pass. But do you understand why people are skeptical and the pain and the suffering? Look, when you made the point about the House and then you know, black people were saying, look, it's not as if black people in the House were any better off than people in the field. Both of them were subject to slave dominance, hegemony, hatred, rape, and the like. And as a result of that, people think that that's insensitive.
But surely you must know all that was not going on in my mind.
Right? Well, of course.
And as far as your question about you're going to... Look, I know we're friends. I mean, and that is not a greater bond than your bond with the black community. I hope we're friends forever, but anyone who knows you knows you're a straight shooter. I mean, I feel like I got Robert Mueller here, you know. You know...
Well, let me ask you this. So, one of the things that... You know, my book, the book you mentioned, is about white privilege. I talk a lot about white privilege. When I was here before, I spoke about that. And people believe that one of the things you did last week was an unconscious reflex. Nobody would ascribe to you any malicious intent, but that's the point, right? That it grows out of a culture that reflexively identifies that particular word with some heinous acts in history, and so they think it's a matter of privilege that it doesn't happen. Let me read you something that my son, a well-known authority on this, this is what he texted me. He said, I know white boys like that who get a pass, who earn a pass from the work they put in, but the coolest and most honorable white boys are the ones that choose not to act on that pass because they understand the history, pain, and insensitivity behind the use of the N-word. So do you truly understand the need to name and to challenge that unconscious white privilege that exists and how it hurts black people, even if unintentionally?
Yeah, but of course, I think I do. I mean, we're all evolving. We're all who we are. By the way, this happened once. A guy said a weird thing. I made a bad joke. Yes, it was wrong, and I own up to that. But, I mean, it's not like I've made a career of this. You know, it's not like I went out there last Friday and said, oh, I'm going to break some new ground tonight. You know, it happened, and it was wrong, and people make mistakes. We're all sinners, and we got to, you know. So, but I totally get that. Look, I mean, we are all evolving at the pace of day by day. I grew up in an all-white town in New Jersey, not Alabama. That's the country. I was born in 1956. I grew up in New Jersey in the 50s and 60s, and race wasn't even an issue. It didn't exist. We were, except my parents told me the right thing about it. And I've tried to, by the way, portray the right thing about it.
Well, there's no question about that.
Which you have said.
Well, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. There's no question. But here's the issue. You just put your finger on an extremely important point. So that those people over there, right? We think about in the age of Trump. We think about the nefarious resurgence of racism under Jeff Sessions and under Steve Bannon. There's no question about that. So that even if your intent is certainly not to cause any kind of pain or horror, you do know that the use of that word then triggered, I think, not only the unconscious, but the way in which black people feel on their haunches now because of the resurgence of racism that the reason I'm here is because you have attacked that. You are the one who said denying racism is the new racism. You're the one who called Donald Trump out on his racism and forced him to show his birth certificate. But what's interesting and tricky here is that when I talk about white privilege in my book, I talk about people who are consciously the allies of black people, but who may also inadvertently, unintentionally, but nonetheless lethally participate in a culture that ends up hurting, as you've acknowledged, black people in a way that has to be grappled with. That's why I think there was so much outrage and hurt and pain. People don't think, oh, Bill Maher is a racist. I don't think most people thought that. What they thought was, if even Bill Maher can at some level capitulate to a level of unconscious privilege, then the rest of us are in a serious spot.
Okay, but I'm not here to make excuses, but first of all, the word is omnipresent in the culture. So the fact that it was in my mind is, you know. Also, is there part of what you're saying true? Absolutely. As I said, I'm just a product of the country like everybody else. But I just don't want to pretend this is more of a race thing than a comedian thing. Comedians are a special kind of monkey.
So to speak.
We are... Don't fuck with me. We are a trained thing that tries to get a laugh. That's what we do. That's all we are always thinking. And this is not the first time this has happened. First time on this subject, but not the first time I've gotten in trouble in private, as well as in public, because that's what comedians are somehow wired to do, is like always go, we want to make those people laugh. And sometimes we transgress a sensitivity point. I mean, my friend Kathy Griffin, who, by the way, owes me a fruit basket for getting her off the front page.
No doubt about that. No doubt.
But, you know, there's a similarity there because, like, what she did, as much as I hate Trump, yeah, that's wrong. You don't do that to whoever the president is. But, you know, she was going for a laugh. And I understand that we sometimes do cross the line. Where I wanted to say to her is, she said, Trump broke me. No, he shouldn't, and my career's over. No, it's not. You make a mistake, you don't have to go away. Everyone makes mistakes.
No question about that. Let me say this.
Kathy Griffin should not go away.
No. You know, I talk in this book, and I think you and I have talked about this offline, that when I first heard nigger said to me, I was a 7-year-old child with my friends in the South.
I reread it this week. I mean, I felt even worse.
I mean, look, and it's real because that kind of crashing consciousness that I am different, that I am forever consigned to a different box, relegated to a different reality, so that even with, I think you're absolutely right in terms of the comedic line, you know what people would respond to that by saying, but look, there are trigger points even in comedy that lines you should not cross, as you said, Kathy should not do, and when it comes to race, you know that. I mean, it's not that I'm introducing a new concept to you. You understand that. But the reality is that there are so many people who are vulnerable out here, who are black people, brown people, red and yellow people, who are vulnerable, who don't have the protection of a culture so that their comedians might make jokes. Think about it. I thought about Larry, look, you remember Larry David, one of my favorite scenes from Curb Your Enthusiasm is when a black man comes up to him and says, hey, you my nigga. And Larry David wants to show affection. So he wants to go, he says, are you my Caucasian? So, so what he understood was that's a line he can't cross, and because he understands he can't cross it, even his comedy has to be disciplined by it. Now, as you've already said, the reason I'm here, the reason I'm here is because I'm willing to take the heat for people because I think that the Bill Maher I know has been on the front line, protecting, arguing, standing up for people. You made a mistake, you've acknowledged that mistake, and I think it's important for the nation not to rush past that, but to understand that even as celebrated and as conscientious a figure as you, if you can make a mistake, that means the rest of us can. So we have to grapple with how deeply rooted that is. So for me, look, I know you're not a Christian and you're an atheist, and I'm a Christian, but I tell people often I'd rather work with you as an atheist because you ultimately believe in the principles of justice. But my Bible tells me to whom much is given, much is required. You've been given a great deal, and as a result of the great deal that you've been given, I want to see you continue to stand up and trumpet justice for those who are vulnerable, to reinforce their standing in a culture where you've gone after the powerful and done it in such a powerful way. That's why I text you often every week after the show and say, Bill, you got in their faces again. And in getting in their faces again, that means standing with those who are vulnerable for those who are need to have their rights.
Look, I mean, every quarterback throws an interception.
No doubt, no doubt.
And I try to squeeze them in.
Yeah.
More than most.
Yeah, you're Brett Favre'ing the game there. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, look, what bothered me about this is that it cost me a lot of political capital.
Yeah.
I'll use that term, even though I'm a comedian. But I'm a comedian who's doing something a little different than most, which is, of course, I'm trying to entertain and be popular. That's my political capital.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm saying things that are sometimes unpopular, even with my own liberal group, which most people don't.
Yeah, we celebrate.
So I'm always, you know, aware of like, well, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to spend political capital for a cause or a view that I think needs to be out there.
Right.
This wasn't that. This was just a mistake.
All right.
This was just a dumb interception, you know.
Right. Well, no doubt.
So, you know, but again, I've been on 24 years.
Right. Well, there's no question. And the thing is,
it's not like,
as I said, you know, that this would be a teachable moment. It is a teachable moment because you happen to be the kind of person whose conscience causes you to be reflective. There's so many more millions of people who exercise white privilege without any sense of consciousness and who refuse to own up to that in a way. And I think whether or not you intended that to be the case, it at least opens up the possibility that we can have that conversation. And I think that's a consequence.
You mentioned a few minutes ago the fact that I introduced that phrase into the language.
Yes.
Denying racism is the new racism.
Yes.
I mean, a vast majority of Fox News viewers think racism doesn't exist.
Right, that we've made it up.
And that the real problem is reverse racism.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, there's a lot of work to do, and your book talks about let's get to what people can really do. Because you talk about reparations and you talk about reading.
Right.
Just in the time we have left, tell us about those two things, because I think they're important.
And you know, when I talk about reparations, I'm not saying that every white person should give their money to black people, though after the show, if anybody is willing to do that, I certainly want to be available. But I'm talking about practical things. Let me tell you what, some white folk read my book and wrote me and said, look, I took you seriously. I went out and bought some computers that were tore up, that were jacked up. I got them fixed. I took 20 computers over to the local school with African-American people, and they sent me the pictures of them, and it was incredible. So those are the kind of practical things, practical wisdom, practical justice that can be rendered in the name of that. And then reading, look, all of us need to deepen our awareness of what's going on. As you know, Bill, I mean, and you'll have that conversation later, black people ourselves are at war with each other about whether we use the N-word or not.
Yes.
Some people think we should, some people think we shouldn't.
Right.
I'm not a racial loyalist in the sense of I believe we should be fundamentally aligned to a certain position that says if you believe this and you're legitimate, you're black, and if not, you don't. I don't believe in that. I believe in the same kind of thing you believe in, the kind of irreverence. But having said that, what I also understand is that reading and engaging the world around us, learning something about the world before you, so many people speak about race and they have racial amnesia. They're caught in a fog of dismemory. They want to see the world the way they want to see it. They listen to Fox all day long. They believe that the president is the greatest man, I'm talking about the present president, in the history of the world. And what they fail to understand is that this new age in which we live has certified and legitimated the resurgence of some of the most heinous expressions of anti-blackness that we've seen. And we need you as an ally, and I'm glad we got you, brother.
Doctor, professor, my friend,
Thank you so much, brother.
Michael Eric Dyson.